My name is Kay Wilds, and I'm 26. I write code for a living and grocery lists on the backs of receipts when my brain is too tired for neatness. 2 years ago, after more night shifts and freelance sprints than I care to admit, I closed on a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet suburb. It isn't the kind of house you brag about on social media. It's the kind you exhale in. 1 bedroom is mine. One is a guest room that practically hums with the wild optimism of "I'll host more." And the third is my office, my real, daily, pays-the-mortgage workspace. Dual monitors aligned to the millimeter, so my shoulders don't scream. An ergonomic desk that took me 3 YouTube rabbit holes to assemble. Sound-dampening panels. I stuck up myself because my job is basically talking to strangers through a grid of rectangles. The walls keep secrets. Client calls, product launches, small wins I clap for alone. This room is where my life makes sense. My little sister Rachel is 22 and newly engaged to Tyler. He's kind in a way that doesn't announce itself. The wedding is 3 months away. My mother, Patricia, has taken wedding planner the way a storm takes a coastline. There are binders. There are color tabs. There are phrases like vision board and statement florals. My dad has a single polo shirt he calls his serious conversation shirt. He wore it on the day everything fell out of the high cupboard and smashed. They came over for dinner last week, Mom with her good purse, Dad with the polo, both on their best behavior, like auditioning for a role called Reasonable. I should have known. Reasonable is what they dress in when the unreasonable wants the keys. We ate lasagna I'd made too salty. Mom smiled like she could taste the word favor under the cheese. She started with family and sacrifices, letting the syllables soak, the way she does when she wants a no to melt into a yes without anyone noticing. Then she pulled out her phone. "Sweetheart," she said, breathless, like she was introducing me to a puppy. "We've had the sweetest idea. Your office. We thought, only temporarily, you could transform it into Rachel's bridal preparation room. A sanctuary for the next 3 months." The words were a bouquet. Then I felt the thorns. She swiped through Pinterest boards she'd curated, warm bulbs around a vanity mirror, soft blush drapes to kill the tech vibe, a mini fridge for the girls, a daybed so Rach can rest between fittings. The captions were already written in her head. The room, my room, was a set piece. My life, the offstage crew. "Mom," I said carefully, like speaking near a sleeping baby, "I work in that office, like real, actual paid work, 4 days a week." She did the dismissive flutter with her hand. "You can work from your bedroom, or the dining room. Some people code from cafes. You're always telling me you're flexible." I looked at Dad. He studied his plate. The polo said conversation. The silence said verdict. From the hallway, the guest room door creaked. Rachel came out, already there, already crying. Not the sharp little tears she throws like confetti when she wants something. This was the glossy, practiced sheen. "I just thought," she sniffed, "you'd want to be part of my special journey. Tyler's family is doing so much." I glanced at my boyfriend, Evan, who was stacking dishes in the kitchen with the quiet efficiency of a lighthouse. He caught my eye, gave the smallest nod that meant I'm here. My roommate Brian slipped past us and retreated to his room like a man who's learned about rip currents the hard way. I tried to explain. The ergonomic desk adapted to my back, the soundproofing that kept clients from hearing Brian's Thursday trivia nights, the filing cabinets with sensitive documents, the reality that my bedroom barely fits the bed and my dresser, the dining room open to the living room where a TV lives a very uninhibited life. Dad finally spoke. "Sometimes being a good sister means making sacrifices." His voice went soft on sister, like a lullaby. Mom leaned in. "Rachel only gets married once, Kay." I thought of statistics and swallowed them. The pitch turned into a plan. Mom had measured the wall behind my desk. She had a ribbon color that photographs like size. She had budgeted for new lighting, had a florist who could pepper the corners with whimsy, had, somehow, the keys to my schedule. "Only for 3 months, she kept saying, as if repetition made the ask smaller. I felt my face warm. There's a kind of heat that isn't anger and isn't fear. It's the body remembering. In college, when I'd save for a car and they convinced me to loan it for Rachel's emergency spring break, the birthday party volunteered into my apartment. The dozens of small, only for nows that turned into always. Evan set a glass of water at my elbow. No speech, just the water. I took a sip and tasted my own pulse. I'm happy for you, I told Rachel. I really am, but my office is my work. It's how I pay for this house. I can help in other ways. Use your apartment. Or Mom and Dad's spare room, but not my office. The air went taut. Mom's thumbs flew. Group chat. Already open. Already drafting the narrative. Aunt Jennifer's son gave up his entire apartment for his sister's wedding party, she said out loud, rehearsing the text she'd send if my answer stayed wrong. Dad shook his head with that brand of disappointment that lands directly on the tender spot you never learned to protect. Rachel's sobs grew louder, as if volume could do carpentry. I held the line with my whole body. It didn't feel brave. It felt like I was on a cliff edge, and the ground behind me was a door I could never close again if I stepped backward. Brian happened to reemerge to grab a charger. He froze, clocked the tableau, and rerouted like a gazelle who has seen a documentary. 3 months, Mom repeated. Then you can have it back. I thought of my code windows, the way they open every morning like reliable suns. I thought of the way I exhale when the door clicks. I thought of Evan's steady hands. No, I said. My voice came out softer than I meant, but it stayed. The night splintered. They left on a gust of wounded righteousness. Mom with a parting shot about priorities. Dad with a soft, fix this. Rachel texting at escape velocity, her thumbs writing me into the role I've always been cast in. Villain, miser, problem. I stared at the panels on the office wall long after the door shut. The house felt like a stage set after the audience has gone home. Glitter in the carpet, silence buzzing like a neon sign. Evan slid onto the couch beside me, one knee touching mine. He didn't offer solutions. He didn't say I was right, though his hand said it. He just asked, tea or ice cream? Both, I said. It came out like a joke. It felt like a plea. My phone lit up. Mom, your Aunt Jennifer's son gave up his entire apartment for 3 months. Family first. Rachel, I guess I know where I stand with you. Dad, your mother is very upset. Fix this. A number I hadn't saved in 2 years. Cousin Mark. Dude, just give her the room. Is your job really more important than family? Yes, I whispered to an empty room, because I'm the kind of woman who performs courage in private before I can wear it in public. Yes, it is. It pays for the house that contains the room in question. Brian knocked on the door frame. Do you want me to install that video doorbell from the box in the pantry? I blinked. We never installed it. He shrugged. We were waiting for a reason. Evan squeezed my hand. You have one. That night I lay awake, replaying every only for now I'd ever agreed to. The question throbbed. Am I cruel? It's the one my family knows how to place like a coin in a jukebox, and my body knows the old song by heart. The next morning, I opened my laptop in the office, my office, and booked an extra session with Dr. Martinez. The subject line I typed was, I said no. Now what? When I closed the lid, a thin light sliced under the office door and touched my feet. For the first time, I could see it clearly. They were asking for a room, but what they wanted was a door, one that only swung one way. I pressed my palm against the wall and felt the quiet hum of everything I had built without applause. Stay, I told the room. Or maybe I told myself. Outside somewhere, Mom was opening new tabs. Inside, the monitors waited. The work waited. My life waited, intact. And I sat down to begin. I thought the storm would fade after I said no. I was wrong. It just changed shape. The next morning, my phone lit up before I'd even opened my laptop. Mom, Dad, Rachel, 3 separate notifications. Same rhythm of guilt. Mom, your father couldn't sleep last night. Think about family. Dad, your mother is very upset. Can you please talk to her? Rachel, I don't understand how you can be so cold. It's just a room, Kay. It wasn't just a room. It was the only space in my life that no one else had a key to. By noon, my cousins were texting me too. Little digital soldiers carrying Patricia's message. Family helps family. It's just temporary. You used to be so generous. The campaign was coordinated, strategic, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. That evening, Evan brought home takeout and sat across from me on the couch. You've been checking your phone every 5 seconds, he said quietly. You don't have to read everything they send. I know, I said, but if I don't, I'll spend the night wondering what I missed. He tilted his head. What if missing it is the point? I looked at him, really looked. Calm, grounded, unhooked from the guilt that ran in my family's veins. I wanted to borrow that calm. Maybe that's what love was, borrowing someone's steadiness when yours was shaking. Later that night, I pulled out my laptop and opened an old tab, Dr. Martinez Therapy Portal. I'd been seeing her for work stress, startup deadlines, burnout, imposter syndrome, but I'd never talked about my family. That changed. The next morning, I walked into her office with a lump in my throat and a story that started somewhere in childhood and never stopped. She listened. Then she said something I'll never forget. Kay, do you notice how you needed strangers on the internet to confirm that keeping your workspace is reasonable? It hit like a whisper and a thunderclap at once. We traced the pattern. The borrowed money for Rachel's emergency spring break. The surprise birthday party my parents volunteered my apartment for. The quiet expectation that my time, my money, my peace belonged to everyone but me. Dr. Martinez wrote 2 words on her notepad and turned it toward me. Enmeshment, boundaries. Then she said, "Tell me, if your roommate asked to take your office for 3 months, what would you say?" I didn't hesitate. No. And would you feel guilty about that? Not at all. It's my office. She leaned forward. Then why do you feel guilty when it's your family? I didn't have an answer. When I left her office that day, I sat in my car for 15 minutes, engine off, replaying that question until it echoed like a riddle I'd finally decided to solve. That night, I drafted replies. Calm, professional, boundaries in full sentences. I understand this wedding is important. My office is essential for my work, which allows me to maintain my home. I'm happy to help in other ways, as I've already offered. Dr. Martinez helped me phrase it, firm but not cruel. I sent the message. Then I muted the group chat. The response wasn't silence, it was escalation. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my door, mid-morning, unannounced, while I was in a client meeting. Brian texted from the living room. Your mom's at the door. Should I answer? I typed back, no. The doorbell rang for 15 straight minutes. Then it stopped. When I finally checked the door, she was gone, but she'd left a note taped to the glass. We need to talk about your selfishness. I held the paper for a moment, then shredded it without reading it again. That night, she sent a text that chilled me more than anything else. I saw your therapy charges on the phone bill. I can't believe you're talking about us to a stranger. That's when I realized she'd been monitoring my credit card through the family phone plan. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up changing every password I had, transferring my number to my own account. It wasn't just about privacy. It was about reclaiming my adulthood from the woman who never noticed I'd grown up. The next morning, Dad called. Your mother's crying, he said. This therapy nonsense is putting ideas in your head. I swallowed a bitter laugh. Maybe that's the point, Dad. He hung up. For 2 days, silence. Then Rachel's name flashed on my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. Kay, she said, voice trembling with rehearsed concern. Are you okay? You've been off. Maybe work's stressing you out. Mom's worried you're having some kind of breakdown. There it was again, the script, the way they rewrote my sanity whenever I stopped complying. I'm fine, Rachel, I said. Just learning new words for old problems. She didn't get it. She just sighed. You've never been this cruel before. Cruel. There was that word again, the one that used to undo me. But this time I didn't cry. I hung up softly. When I told Dr. Martinez about it, she smiled gently. When people lose access to your compliance, they call it cruelty. The words stitched themselves somewhere inside me. A few days later, I got an unexpected text from Tyler, Rachel's fiancé. Hey, Kay, I had no idea about the office thing. I think it's ridiculous that they even asked. Rachel's been stressed, but honestly, your mom's been fueling it. The Pinterest boards are out of control. He paused, then added, For what it's worth, I respect you for saying no. I stared at that message for a long time. It was the first validation I'd received from anyone with my family's last name attached to it. When I told Evan, he just smiled. Looks like you're not the family villain after all. Not yet, I said. Give it time. We both laughed, but something in me shifted. Maybe the story wasn't about being the villain. Maybe it was about stepping out of a script that was never mine to begin with. That night, Brian installed the Ring doorbell he'd been holding onto for months. When the light blinked green, I felt something ease in my chest. Now, he said, we can see who's at the door before we open it. He didn't just mean the front door. The next morning, I brewed my coffee and opened my laptop in my office, my sanctuary, my battleground, my boundary. Outside, the world was still spinning in guilt and accusation. Inside, the light from the monitor brushed against my fingers, steady and familiar. For the first time in my life, I felt something I hadn't known how to name before. Peace. But peace, I would soon learn, is what they attack when they can't control you anymore. By the time Rachel's wedding month arrived, my phone had become a museum of guilt. Every message on display was another exhibit of family means sacrifice. Mom's texts came in two moods. I miss my daughters, or you've broken your mother's heart. Dad's messages were fewer, always short, always resigned. This is ridiculous, Kay. I responded to none of them. Dr. Martinez said silence can be a language too, but silence doesn't always protect you. It sometimes provokes. The week before the wedding, that silence detonated. I was at work, midway through a video presentation for a major client, when my colleague pinged me. Hey, Kay, someone's here asking for you in the lobby. I frowned. Who? Your mom. The world tilted. What? When I reached the lobby, Patricia was there. Tears, pearls, and full theatrical despair. She was telling the receptionist, I'm just a mother trying to reach my daughter before she destroys our family. Security had to escort her out after she refused to leave. I apologized to everyone, cheeks burning. My manager pulled me aside afterward. Everything okay at home? I nodded. It's a family thing. He gave me a look that said we've all been there, but he hadn't, not like this. That night, I sat on the floor of my office, knees pulled to my chest, trying not to shake. Evan came in quietly, holding tea. You did nothing wrong, he said. She showed up at my job, Evan. She cried in front of strangers. She's losing control, he said gently. That's what this is. He was right. I could feel it, the unraveling. For days, I debated skipping the wedding altogether. Every scenario played in my head. Mom's public sobbing, relatives whispering, Rachel glaring. I imagined being the only person in the room without a role to play. Then, 3 nights before the wedding, Tyler called. Kay, he said softly, I need to say something. My stomach nodded. If you're calling to guilt me, no. The opposite. I wanted to thank you. I blinked. For what? For saying no. I wish I'd learned how. His words startled me. Rachel's been under pressure, he continued. Your mom's turned this whole thing into a production. It's not about marriage anymore. It's about perfection. Every detail has to match her vision. I tried to push back, but it's like arguing with weather. He exhaled. I'm sorry you got dragged into it. For the first time in months, someone from the inside spoke truth. Thank you, I whispered. That means more than you know. He chuckled weakly. I don't think she's been at herself lately. Or maybe she has, and I just didn't see it until now. That last line stayed with me. The night before the wedding, I laid out my plan. Evan would come as my +1. We'd attend the ceremony and part of the reception, give our gift, and leave before midnight. No confrontation, no drama. Just boundaries, quietly lived. When I told Dr. Martinez during our last session before the big day, she smiled. That's not avoidance, she said. That's self-protection. You can honor the event without abandoning yourself. So that's what I did. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll admit, over the top but flawless. 7 bridesmaids in champagne satin, doves released into the sky, a string quartet that could have scored a movie. I sat beside Evan in the family row, his hand discreetly brushing mine under the tablecloth. He didn't have to say a word. His calm was armor. But as the day bled into evening, I could see the exhaustion on Rachel's face. Her smile flickered like a dying candle every time Mom adjusted her veil or barked at the caterers. Then came the reception. The ballroom glowed with chandeliers, laughter, champagne. Aunt Jennifer avoided me entirely. Cousin Mark waved awkwardly, then pretended to text. The family villain apparently still had a reputation. Rachel floated between tables, plastering on that porcelain smile. When she finally approached ours, I braced myself. But instead of anger, there was something else, weariness. She sat beside me without warning, her bouquet trembling slightly. I'm so tired, she whispered. I blinked. Of the wedding? Of everything. Mascara streaked her cheeks as she spoke. Mom won't stop. The flowers are wrong, the cake's too small, the lighting's off. I just wanted to get married. Now it feels like I'm performing for her. For the first time in years, I didn't see the golden child. I saw my little sister, scared, stretched thin, human. I took her hand. Then stop performing, Rach. Just breathe. She nodded weakly, tears smudging into laughter. You sound like your therapist. She's expensive. Might as well share the wisdom. Tyler appeared, relieved. There you are. He looked at me gratefully. Thanks, Kay, for being here. Before I could answer, a voice cut through the room. Mom, holding a microphone. She was mid-toast, glowing with champagne and righteousness. To my perfect daughter, she declared, and to families that support each other through everything. Every syllable landed like a dart. Her eyes found me across the room. Rachel groaned softly and buried her face in Tyler's shoulder. I caught Evan's glance. He gave the smallest nod, the one that meant we're done here. We slipped out quietly after the speech, leaving the ballroom's noise behind. The night air was cool, the parking lot lights harsh. Evan opened the car door for me, then paused. You okay? I stared at the glitter of champagne residue on my dress. Yeah, weirdly, I am. He smiled. You faced it, without folding. As we drove away, I looked out the window at the glowing venue. Through the glass, I could still hear faint music, see silhouettes spinning in rehearsed joy. My phone buzzed, a text from Tyler. Thank you for coming, and thank you for keeping your boundary. It helped me realize I need to start setting some too. I put my phone face down and let the words sink in. The next morning, I expected a hangover of guilt, but instead I woke up lighter. Dr. Martinez had once said, boundaries don't destroy relationships. They reveal which ones were real to begin with. For the first time, I believed her. 3 weeks after the wedding, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen since that night, Rachel. For a second, I almost didn't answer. I was standing in my office, coffee mug in hand, the morning light spilling across my desk. The room, the one that started it all, looked exactly the same, peaceful, untouched. Mine. I took a breath and picked up. Her voice was soft, tired. Kay? Hey, I said cautiously. I need to say something. I owe you an apology. I froze. The words sounded foreign coming from her. I've been in therapy, she said quickly, before I could speak. Tyler and I started couples counseling after the honeymoon. The therapist said something about family systems and how patterns repeat unless we break them. And I just saw it. All of it. She was crying again, but not in the old, manipulative way. This time, her tears sounded like truth trying to find its voice. I watched our old home videos, she said. I saw how every birthday, every holiday, Mom made everything about me. How you were always in the background, helping, holding, disappearing. I didn't see it before. I'm so sorry, Kay. I sank into my chair, gripping the edge of the desk. For years, I'd rehearsed what I'd say if this moment ever came. But now that it was here, I just sat there in silence. Thank you, I finally said. That means more than you think. We talked for nearly 2 hours that morning. Not as the golden child and the scapegoat, but as two grown women who had been shaped and nearly broken by the same house. Rachel told me that Patricia had tried to help decorate their apartment while they were away on their honeymoon, repainting walls, rearranging furniture, even leaving framed photos of Rachel's childhood on the shelves. Tyler had finally drawn the line. She called me ungrateful, Rachel said I was abandoning her. It's like she can't see me unless she's controlling me. That's exactly it, I said quietly. That's how she sees love. Rachel sniffed. How did you learn to stop feeling guilty? I didn't, I admitted. I just learned that guilt isn't the same as wrong. She laughed softly through her tears. You sound like a therapist. Trust me, I've paid enough for the privilege. We made a plan to meet for coffee that weekend, just the two of us. No parents, no scripts, just sisters. And for the first time, that word, sisters, didn't sting. 2 days later, Dad called. I was wondering, he said, voice quieter than I'd ever heard it, if I could come over, alone. I hesitated, then agreed. When he arrived, he looked older, shoulders stooped, eyes heavy. He sat in my living room, hands clasped together like he was afraid they'd shake. I've been thinking about your office, he began. About everything. Your mother, she means well, but somewhere along the way, we lost track of what that actually means. He looked up, meeting my eyes. I should have stood up for you more. I should have stood up to her more. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the first time he'd said anything that felt real. I've been seeing someone, he continued, a counselor. Don't tell your mother. She still thinks therapy's for people with real problems. He gave a weak chuckle. But I realized I've spent my whole life avoiding conflict by letting your mother win. I thought it kept the peace. I see now it just passed the damage to you girls. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, thank you. He nodded, eyes glistening. Small steps, he murmured. When he left, I stood at the window watching him walk down the driveway. The man who'd always chosen silence had finally chosen to speak. Of course, Patricia wasn't taking the shift quietly. By the end of the month, she had rallied the extended family into what I could only describe as a mini intervention. Aunt Jennifer sent me a long message about family unity and the dangers of individualism. Uncle Robert called, saying, "Your mother's just hurt, Kay. You know how she gets." They invited me and Rachel to dinner at my parents' house to clear the air. We didn't go. Instead, Rachel texted me a photo from outside their house. The porch empty, except for 2 untouched casseroles and a handwritten note that said, "Family means forgiveness." She added, "They planned an intervention without us. Aunt Jennifer gave a speech to 2 chairs." I couldn't help but laugh. "Symbolic," I texted back. We met for coffee the next morning as planned. For the first time in years, it felt easy. Rachel was calmer, grounded. She told me she'd started reading about the golden child, our scapegoat dynamic, how families assign roles to survive dysfunction. "I used to think mom's love was something you had to earn," she said. "Now I think it's something she uses to keep people close." I stirred my coffee slowly. "She doesn't understand love without control. That's the only kind she knows." Rachel nodded. "I want something different. For me, for Tyler." She looked up at me, eyes clear. "You showed me that." That same week, Evan and I had our own small test. His ex-girlfriend, Chloe, texted him out of the blue, something about returning an old jacket she'd found. He told me immediately, showed me the message, asked if I wanted him to block her. I smiled. "No need. Just tell her thanks, and you're good." He did. Then he looked at me and said, "You know, my last girlfriend would have gone through my phone." "Yeah, well," I said, "my last family would have gone through my therapy receipts." We both laughed. It hit me then. Boundaries weren't just about saying no to others. They were also about saying yes to trust, to respect, to peace. That night, I sat in my office, the glow of my monitors soft and familiar, and realized something. This room had become more than a workspace. It was proof. Proof that I could draw a line and survive what came after. Proof that peace was possible, even after the storm. But as Dr. Martinez always said, peace isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new way of living. And that's exactly what was starting to take shape. By November, the chaos had quieted into something almost unfamiliar. Peace that stayed. The kind that doesn't announce itself with fanfare, just settles into the corners of your life like sunlight you didn't realize was missing. Thanksgiving was coming up. Normally, that meant elaborate group texts, emotional blackmail disguised as family bonding, and my mother's annual decree that attendance is love. This year, Rachel sent the invitation instead. Friendsgiving at our place, just people who respect boundaries. The guest list was small. Me, Evan, Brian, Tyler's sister and her partner, a few close friends. No Patricia. No Dad this time either, though he promised to call. When Evan and I arrived, the apartment smelled like roasted rosemary chicken and cinnamon. Rachel stood in the kitchen, wearing an apron that said Therapy Works. I laughed. Subtle. She grinned. You inspired it. Dinner was easy, in a way family never used to be. No one was competing for control. No one was walking on eggshells. We talked about real things. Work, trips, therapy breakthroughs, shows we loved. Every laugh felt earned. After dessert, Rachel raised her glass. To boundaries, therapy, and home offices that stay home offices. Everyone laughed, but there was something reverent about it too. Later, while the others were cleaning up, she sat beside me on the couch. "You know," she said quietly, "if you'd given up your office, none of this would have happened." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "We'd have had the perfect wedding, by Mom's standards. I'd still be her puppet, and you'd still be her scapegoat. That office, it wasn't just a room, it was a line in the sand. When you drew it, you broke the spell." I stared at her, realizing she was right. The fight that had felt so small, so petty even, had been the first domino. My first no had rippled through our entire family, forcing everyone to look at the dysfunction we'd all been living under. Evan joined us, sliding a hand around my shoulder. "You two okay?" Rachel smiled. "Yeah, for the first time I think we really are." The next day Dad called. I put him on speaker. He looked relaxed for once, sitting in his recliner, a football game murmuring in the background. "Your mother went to Jennifer's for Thanksgiving," he said. "I ordered Chinese and watched the game in my underwear. Best holiday I've had in years." Rachel burst out laughing. "Good for you, Dad." He smiled. "Dr. Kessler says small rebellions are still progress. Wait, you're still seeing your therapist? I asked. He nodded. Every Thursday. I'm learning things I should have learned 40 years ago. There was a pause. Then he said softly, I'm proud of you girls. Both of you. My throat tightened. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them. Without guilt, without condition. A week later, I stood in my office again, rearranging a few things. I'd added a new plant, a little pothos that Brian insisted would bring good energy. Evan had surprised me with a new chair for my birthday. Above the desk, I'd hung a small frame sign Brian had made as a joke. Boundary testing lab. No unauthorized experiments. I kept it up because, well, it felt true. When I sat down at my desk, I thought about how this space had changed me, about how saying no once had reshaped every relationship in my life. Dr. Martinez's words echoed in my mind. Boundaries aren't walls. They're property lines. They don't keep people out. They show them where the door is. And maybe, finally, the people who mattered had found their way to the right side of that door. Rachel texted me later that night, a photo from her wedding. She was mid-laugh, hair messy, makeup smudged, eyes alive. This is the only picture I actually like, she wrote. It's the only one where I look like myself, not who Mom wanted me to be. Then she added, thanks for keeping your office. You changed everything. I sat there for a long time, smiling at my screen. The doorbell rang. It was Evan, coming home late from a night shift. I looked around my office one last time before turning off the light. The hum of the computer, the faint scent of coffee, the quiet stillness of a room that had become a symbol of something bigger. Self-respect, peace, and choice. I closed the door behind me and whispered, "Good night, room." It wasn't just a space anymore. It was proof that I'd learned to live on my own terms. And for the first time, my life, my real life, finally felt like mine.